Hi, I'm Frank Geremia. I'm an instructor at Full Sail University. Been here close to 20 years, and in that time, I've been a lab specialist in the art department. I've worked in production design, teaching students Vectorworks, which is a CAD software. And now I'm in FI3 and FI4 production courses. I've always liked painting and drawing and things like that. So my mom would teach oil painting in the basement when I was a kid. She would just, she'll draw it out in charcoal, and then it was like, this is how you paint a pedal, or how you draw it in charcoal. But I didn't know how to do it, but it was very much like, well, how do I paint the brick? Well, this is how. You do this, this, and this. So it was like this is how it's done, now you do it, okay? My first gig related to my degree after I graduated college was working at a scenic shop called Cinnabar, Florida Incorporated. The scene shop was very busy at the time, and so I got to, my very first big gig was working on Twister at Universal Studios. I mean, Jurassic Park was the first job, so that's kind of like, it just imprints on you. It's your first time in the field for an extended period of time where you're not in the scene shop. Well, that one's fun for scenic painting because that was my first scenic painting big job. They're fun, but Twister was the one where I worked on location first and then in the shop building the hamburger stand. So there was the hamburger stand that came second, and that's where I met my mentor, who the first day working with him, and how he took an hour to show me everything that we were doing that day so I knew what I was doing. And then it made, for someone that never worked in sheet metal before, it made it completely like, it takes the anxiety out of the job. It's like, hey, all right, I know what to do. I'm just gonna do what he tells me to do. And when you do that, they think you're amazing because you're just following their instruction. I was feeling full of myself, like, hey, I made it, I'm here, I'm doing it. I wonder, what convinced them, to hire me. The reason I got hired, he said, the specific reason I hired you or told Barbara to hire you was because you didn't know how to use a tool and you asked how to use it. And he goes, that means you're coachable. I can work with coachable. That was a huge lesson for me on Twister. But Twister was also just super cool to be part, like the first walls I ever put up were not straight, they were leaning in. So, and they were stud walls made of aluminum, not 1x4. So it's like, hey, I know how to do it this way. We're not doing it that way. And it's like, if you've ever been in that attraction in Aunt May's house and you see the van hanging from there with the Mickey Mouse ears tight to the wheel that are spinning, like I was there that day helping put that in there. And it's cool, like you go in there and I'm like, man, all those years, well, now they took it down. But any scenic job, the big thing is you're dealing with being very conscious of your surroundings as far as keeping things clean. You're dealing with elements, so weather. If it's extremely hot, your paint dries super fast. If it's extremely cold, it takes longer and you are miserable because your hands are freezing, you're dipping them in water, you're doing different things. I was kind of tired of working in the scene shop because I did want to get into film more. And all of that left Florida because when I started working there, I thought this was going to be my way into the film industry. And the guy, like 6 months in, the guy's like, this was already the late 90s. And he's like, that stuff left long ago. He's like, LA decided, now we're going to go back and do things in LA. My daughter was born and I was like, you know what? I don't have any family down here. I just want to raise my daughter and we'll just live off my wife's salary, which wasn't a lot. But really, like when your child's born, it's like, it's all you care about. So to spend all day with her, it was the best experience of my life. And then Jacob Abercrombie, who had worked here in the set design class, decided to take a job with Paramount Parks, I think, in North Carolina. And I got called by Chuck Kerr, who I worked with at Cinnabar. And he's like, hey, they got a job as a teacher for set design. And I was like, I'm not a teacher. I didn't get a teaching degree or anything like that. And he's just like, no. They want industry professionals who've been out there. You'd be called a lab specialist because you're a specialist in what you do. So you're telling them stuff that they can't learn from a book. So I wasn't like, oh, I want to be a teacher. I was like, can I be a teacher? But I think a lot of us like this business because it's different. Every month there's a new story to tell, and that change is stimulating. And so you're teaching a whole bunch of people how to do something that you taught the month before, but it's a different set. I was so nervous that I was going to be like, am I making a mistake here? Am I going to be bored out of my mind teaching the same lessons over and over and over again in a classroom setting? But what changes in a classroom? The students. So I liken it to, what is your favorite movie? Like you just love to show people. Now you've seen it so many times and it still brings you joy, but when you show it to someone new, it's like seeing it for the first time. And that's what it feels like to teach someone. You know, I had getting all choked up. It's happened on more than one occasion, but specifically, you guys can get to this class in FI3 and then be like, I'm leaving school. And, you know, you get an associate's degree. I had a student that was in FI3. She was in the art department, and there was nobody in FI4 that wanted to do art department. So she got thrust into the position, learning everything that she would have learned in between and in that class that month. And so she got to design a set. She got to delegate the labor. After the end of class, like after we say our speeches and all that, and you guys talk and say your speeches, and we're wrapping up, I was closing my job box over there, and she walked up to me and she goes, you know, I was going to leave school because I just wasn't getting what I wanted. But now that I've met you, I'm going to stay in school. Got the education that she came here for. And it's happened on more than one occasion, and not just for art students. Something you do as a teacher sometimes that just lights that spark. So that's the best part of teaching, like the absolute best.